Man.
Hi, everyone.
Now we're live. I always forget to do that. Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron Rutten, and I'm joined today by artist Lawrence Mann.
Hi, everyone.
And we are going to discuss and answer questions about Corel Painter 2016. That's the new version of Painter. Lawrence, how are you liking Painter 2016 so far?
I'm absolutely loving it.
Nice. I am as well. I'm finding that the new features are saving me a lot of time, especially the new enhanced layer blending. If you've watched any of my older videos, you'll know that I've griped time and time again about every time I blend, it blends to white, and that just drove me crazy. And so that's actually my favorite new feature out of all the things that they've done to Painter 2016.
I've noticed that on the YouTube videos you've put out there so far, that's your absolute favorite feature.
Yeah, I'm all about it. If I could do a backflip without breaking my neck, I totally would. Maybe we could just really quickly, since we're going to kind of discuss some of these things, if our audience doesn't actually know about these features, I think it would be good to do a little screen share. We could kind of go back and forth with that. So I'll just do a quick screen share here and show you this enhanced layer blending. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, I can see your screen all right.
Okay, so if I were to paint a couple little blobs of paint here, like so, and then use one of these older blenders that doesn't use enhanced layer blending, you're going to see that I get a lot of this white fringe around the edges of my pixels. I might be able to illustrate that better with the Just Add Water brush. And you can see that there. It's adding white when I blend. And that's not how it would normally blend if you were using something like traditional media in real life. Now, if we use this new enhanced layer blending, which is found in the blending palette, formerly known as the well palette, and we turn that on, we can now blend to transparency, so we're not getting that white. So if I switch to something like coarse oily blender and I turn on enhanced layer blending, you can see that it's now just blending as it should. So that's pretty cool. I'm just going to exit out of screen share here. So Lawrence, you used Photoshop a lot before you used Painter. How do you feel about the new ABR brush import feature?
This is actually, I think, probably my favorite new feature. I created a lot of brushes while I was in Photoshop. Since I've been using Painter, funnily enough, I haven't created that many new brushes. In Painter, you don't really create new brushes as such. From a Photoshop standpoint, you tend to adapt brushes. You know, because you don't have stamps, what you tend to do is just fine-tune brushes. It radically changes them, but you don't see yourself as creating brushes. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, you tweak the parameters rather than actually physically building new brushes.
Exactly. It's about settings rather than about the stamps.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got a lot of brushes from Photoshop that I can't replicate exactly. I have, for instance, a whole bundle of cloud brushes that I absolutely love. A lot of which I made from actual photo references that I went out and shot myself. Some even just with my iPhone, and I just went out there and went, "That's a nice cloud." And no, but it works. You see a nice cloud, you take a photo, you can turn that into a brush, and it absolutely worked. And even for little things like photo retouching, which I've done a bit of, and that was great. You know, or for illustrations that I've done, and you can pop it in there, and it looks brilliant. You know, with a couple of clicks, you've dropped a couple of clouds in there.
Mm-hmm.
But in Photoshop, I've made those brushes, and it's absolutely great. In Painter, my clouds actually look more painterly, and that's what I actually love about Painter as opposed to Photoshop. You can tell the difference between my work in Painter and my work in Photoshop. But now I can take all the brushes that I created in Photoshop and import them into Painter. So I can actually you know, it's not just a straight import. Granted, I do have to, once I've imported them, I have to play with the settings, you know, because I'm only importing the stamps. It's not, you know, the brushes work differently, so I have to play with all the settings. But that's great because Painter has a lot of settings, so I can actually fine tune the brushes and make them better than they were in Photoshop.
Yeah.
But once I've done that, I end up with a beautiful set of brushes, and I can replicate what I've done in Photoshop now even better. So I've got, you know, Painter has nigh on 1,000 brushes, and I can go ahead and give it all of the brushes, you know, probably a couple of hundred more that I had from Photoshop from all those years gone by. So that to me is my favorite feature.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
If you look online at all the downloadable brushes that you can get for Photoshop, there's loads of brushes online that you can download for Photoshop that people have made, compared to the amount of brushes that are online that people have made for Painter. So downloadable brush wise, there's a never-ending content supply now of brushes.
Yeah, and these are stamp brushes, so pretty much anything that you could paint or draw, you could make into a brush.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I found that I needed to adjust the spacing more than anything, because when I imported the brush and I started painting, it was kind of looked funky.
Just a airy stroke.
Yeah, it was somewhere between a stamp and an actual stroke. If I might just do a quick screen share, I'll just kind of really quickly do a quick import of a brush, an ABR brush.
I did find, you know, straight off the bat, this is why I was saying about, you know, changing the settings, because if you don't change the settings, you just end up with a smear.
Yeah.
Rather than anything else.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, I can see your screen.
So you go to brushes and then import, and then you choose new from Photoshop brush stamps ABR. The folder you're going to want to look in on Windows is wherever Photoshop is installed. Photoshop CC presets brushes, and then let's pick dry media brushes, for instance. It's going to ask you to name the category. You can choose whichever name you want, and then that's going to import as its own category in your brush selector. If you look down here at the bottom, there's now dry media brushes, and if I select and paint, you can see it looks a little funky. So I'm going to want to go into Window, Brush Control Panels, Spacing. And in this general panel, you can really tweak just about any function of this brush. So as Lawrence said, you can either set this up exactly how you did it in Photoshop, or there's about a billion other things that you could use to tweak this brush even more. So in the spacing, I'm just going to decrease the spacing maybe to about 3%. And now it looks more like that brush would in Photoshop. If you wanted it to be more like a stamp, you could increase the spacing, and then you get, more of a stampy effect. So that's importing those Photoshop brushes in a nutshell. Pretty cool feature.
It is really quick and it's really simple and it just works.
Yeah.
And that's, I think a lot of Photoshop lovers and a lot of people who use Photoshop in conjunction with Painter will absolutely really love that feature. It's another one that just helps it seamlessly work.
Yeah, I heard somebody refer to it as cross-pollination between Corel Painter and Photoshop, you know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because some people kind of get the impression that it's like, you got to choose one or the other, man. Are you Photoshop or are you Painter? And I use both applications, you know. I use Photoshop for its strengths and I use Painter for its strengths. Yeah. And there's very rarely a time where I only use Painter for a painting, you know.
Yeah. It's not Bloods and Cribs.
Yeah. I'd like to invite the audience to ask questions. If there's any questions you have about Corel Painter 2016, or just about Corel Painter in general, or you just want to ask us questions about what we do as artists in our career, stuff like that, we'd be happy to answer those questions. So just go ahead and type them into the comments and we will answer them live on air.
Yep, absolutely anything, just go for it.
Yeah. What's your What's that?
I was just going to say, remember, we were both on the beta team for this, so it's not as if we've both just been using this for, since it was released last week on the 10th. We've been using this for quite a while now, so we do know this program quite extensively.
We know it more well than we should. So.
And also, Chris from Corel is watching this now. So, hiya, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
So, if there's nothing we can't, if there's something we can't answer, we can ask him directly.
It's like a game show. What's your next favorite feature off the top of your head?
I've got to say, it's one of the tiny things. It's actually the color change in the UI.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually one of the things that I wanted ever since 2015 was the darker UI.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we've got a dark gray UI, I'm actually really loving that. So, if it was me, I'd go even darker. But I do love the fact that we now have a dark gray UI.
I agree. There's a lot of it's darker, but then there's some areas that are still white, and I feel like it really messes with the contrast. Like those white areas stand out more as everything else is dark.
Yeah.
So I like it and I don't like it. I think I'm going to stick with the default workspace because I tried switching and it felt odd, but I don't know. I'll get used to the new dark interface. A lot of people like the other two, which one is kind of a frosty blue-gray and the other one is a warm blue-gray.
There's the sepia one, isn't there?
I can show you.
Yeah, like cool gray.
Yeah.
No, I definitely like the dark one. The dark one, I switched to that kind of instantly, and I do like it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'd just go for something almost black.
Yeah.
But if it was me, I'd just have kind of a slider that just went from kind of white to black.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is in Photoshop. You can just move a slider and it changes everything. And I like Photoshops.
It's been years since I actually changed it, so
yeah,
I couldn't remember.
I want to try to show examples here. I just had to find them in the folder. I'm going to do that real quick here.
But yeah, no, I am really enjoying it. That's one of my favorite features. But have you played with the presentation mode?
I have. I'm just going to do a quick screen share. I'll just show off these different modes real quick. Are you able to see that? So this is Frost. Yeah. You can see it's a little bit kind of blue. The icons are white here whenever you select an icon. Sepia is the other one.
I didn't know if you wanted to do that because obviously.
Sorry.
Oh, are these just screenshots?
Yeah. Because you have to close Painter and reopen it if you want to reset the colors.
What I was going to say, because obviously otherwise you have to restart, don't you?
Yeah, but I had these saved, and then the dark looks like this. So
yeah,
it's a little bit darker. I like that, but then there's these areas that kind of have to be light. There's no way around that. Like, I guess the canvas is going to be white no matter what if that's how you're starting. And if you're using Windows 10, then this is going to be white and the input boxes will be white. But I would like it a lot better if those were maybe, kind of an off-white, light gray or something. Then it would kind of balance out the contrast better, I think. As far as presentation mode, I have to assume I'll probably start using it a lot more when I get a little bit more into making more videos, because if you hit F11, you go into presentation mode, and that gets rid of the top Windows bar up at the top in the file menu, and it gives you a little bit more room at the bottom. So you're getting a little bit more screen real estate, and then you hit F11 to get out of presentation mode. I believe if you're on Mac, you're using a Mac, right?
Yeah, I am using it.
You hover like near the top of the screen, and then it gives you the exit menu.
Well, F11 doesn't work for us.
Okay, well, I'm not on Mac, so I'm not Not
But
100% sure.
we've got the button in the toolbar.
Cool.
Same as you, but
Yeah.
we just don't have the F11.
I see. We got a question here, or let's see, maybe it's
Apple OS has something that's basically the same built-in anyway.
Yeah. There's a comment from Gav Elias that says, I do agree that the UI is better, but does need to go way darker in my opinion. I have Photoshop set as a very dark gray, and I find it just makes the artwork pop more. I agree. I don't like the interface to be too light or too dark. It's got to kind of be neutral, because the more neutral it is, the more you're going to be able to focus on the true color of your artwork, because what you're seeing can be changed by the other colors around it. So that's why I'm not really that into like the kind of sepia or the frost, because that's going to introduce a little bit of, it's like the frost especially is so neutral that you might after a while start to believe that it's neutral gray, and then that would influence your perception of everything else. Maybe everything else would look warmer in comparison.
But that's why it's nice to have choice rather than
yeah. The more choices, the better.
I do like the Photoshop kind of dark, almost black.
Yeah.
And I think in a way that's what I would like. I almost would like an exact replica of that myself, but I don't want Painter to just become Photoshop.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously. But yeah, something. The gray that they've got is great. I just want all the elements in that to match that gray.
Yeah.
That we've got now. But I do love the fact that we've got a darker UI. And I do think, for me, we needed that option. So
yeah,
I'm so much happier for having this.
Somebody commented that the sound is off. I apologize if there's a little bit of delay between what we say and our mouths moving. Maybe that's what it is. That's just kind of the nature of Hangouts. Hopefully you can hear both of us talking. We can certainly hear each other.
Is it my sound, your sound, or both our sounds?
It looks like yours is a little off. I can't tell because I'm looking at the live feed for mine, but it's probably off on both of ours. But
if anybody else can hear this, then let us know.
Yeah, well, they can. We know they can hear us because somebody commented on what we were talking about. So I think we're good there. I just think it's kind of a lag between the video and the audio. But I mean, Lawrence is in the UK and I'm in Seattle, so there's a lot of. I mean, this is actually pretty amazing that we can even do a Hangout like this.
Well, if you have any, I'm watching your lips move as you talk, and I can't see any real issue.
Really?
But anyway,
are you sure he's not seeing any delay? Ha 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 ha.
Anyway,
yeah, this is what we're gonna keep doing all day if you don't ask us some more questions.
Yeah, we'll end up doing that all day.
I'll throw out another feature, and that is being able to rotate your papers. Pre-Painter 2016, you couldn't rotate the papers. I believe in like 11.
And the flow maps.
Yeah, and the flow maps. In Painter 11, maybe earlier than that, I believe you could pan the paper, which helped a little bit, but then they took that out, I think, in like X3 in 2015. But now that you can rotate it, it doesn't really sound all that interesting, and you're probably like, woohoo, you can rotate the paper. But I'll just show a little demo of
I mean, it's one of those things. Some people really rely on them.
Well, like for instance,
for the most part, I turn them off, but some people really, really use their papers.
Yeah, I like them a lot. Let's say I wanted to paint some distant trees with leaves. I can do something like this. But if I start to add shading, like I pick a darker color, it's still staying on top of that same pattern no matter what color I pick.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite look right. But if I can rotate the paper just a little bit and then paint, that texture is then going to build up upon itself. And so I can keep rotating it. and keep building up this tree. I could even, rotate it and scale it and get some pretty interesting results here. So that's a pretty cool feature. And as Lawrence said, you can rotate the flow maps too. The flow maps control how your liquid media like watercolor and real wet oils and some of the particle brushes contours to the paper and kind of flows into the cracks.
I'm trying to think of a name here. It's one of our fellow master painters, painter masters.
Skip.
No, female, who uses who does a lot of portraits.
There's a lot. Is it one of the Heathers?
Yes, it might be Heather, actually. It might be one of the Heathers. And she uses paper textures quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So she probably will absolutely love this feature.
Yeah, I use them all the time for texturing things, rocks, trees, all kinds of stuff. So being able to rotate it just makes a huge difference. And there's, more room to experiment and fewer workarounds. I mean, I was talking with Lawrence earlier, just the enhanced layer blending. I have to reset my way of thinking about painting now because, I don't have to worry about all that white fringe when I'm blending. So maybe I can just keep things on layers without having to merge them as much. And really just that one thing just improves my workflow so much.
What we were talking about earlier with the ways that we used to get around the layer blending before we had enhanced layer blending. When we had the white fringe, the things we used to do to get around that, I used to paint on a separate layer and then turn that layer to, if it had white fringes, I used to turn that layer to overlay or lighten or multiply if it was a darker color. Or sometimes I'd paint extra on the layer and then use my eraser to cut off the white fringe. Yeah, there's a kind of things, but now that we have the enhanced blending, I don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, yeah, it saves a lot of time, and then you can just kind of go for things and just do it and not go, okay, well, I got to really think this through before I actually do something to make sure that I don't get this unexpected result. So, if anybody's looking for a reason to upgrade, that would be my reason to upgrade right there, because you can change your whole workflow and make it more efficient.
I can see why it's your favorite feature.
Yeah.
It means you can experiment more without taking risks. It means it will save you a lot of time in the long run, especially on larger pieces. It just improves workflow altogether.
Yeah, it feels more intuitive too. That's what you would expect to happen if you were blending with traditional media. So
yeah, it's not just the tick box on and off either. It's the blending modes in there, like heavy blending and light blending and balanced as well.
Yeah, let's show that, because we have a question from Priscilla De Conti. Hi, Priscilla.
Hi, Priscilla.
Priscilla and I are good friends. She wants to know if we could just talk a little bit more about enhanced layer blending, because she missed that. So I won't go over it again because I didn't really say a whole lot about it, and this will be available on YouTube, but I will show you one of the other features of enhanced layer blending. So we have the blending palette here, and what's cool about the blending palette is I can take any brush now, something that wasn't even a blender formerly, and make it into a blender. Let's say real wet oils.
Yep.
Find something that's not a blender.
Definitely not.
Let's try something else. Let's try sponge. These are now in particle knives and sponges. Dense sponge. Okay, so dense sponge normally adds paint, but we can go into the blending palette, which was formerly the well palette, make sure enhanced layer blending turns on, because that's going to make sure that you don't have the white fringe when you blend. And now you have these presets. These presets basically just change whichever brush you're using, be it a blender or any other brush, and it automatically tweaks the resaturation and the bleed and the brush loading and dry out, which is essentially what makes a brush a blender or not a blender. So if I choose heavy blender for the preset, it's going to automatically adjust the resaturation and bleed, And now this brush is going to function more as a blender. Now, if you want to reset that brush or any brush, you can always click on Reset Tool up here in the top properties bar, and then it goes back to how it's supposed to work. It doesn't blend anymore.
Or obviously, you can just save that as a new variant.
Yeah, if you wanted to do that, you could go to Brushes, Save Variant. You want to give it a different name, so I could call it Dense Sponge Blender or something. And you could save it in the same category if you want it to be found there. Or you can click this plus sign and create a new custom category for all your custom brushes. And I would recommend doing that, because then if you want to save that whole brush category and export all your brushes later, you could go to Export Brush Category, and then they're all packaged together, rather than having to go through each category and pull them out individually. And you can also hold, oops, I had to stop the screen share too soon. One more thing
I was also going to point something else out there that we can come back to later, of course.
Sure.
Which is when you hover over any of those settings there, the amazing tooltips.
Yeah, like if we go to
that have been added in there. We'll come back to that later, but yeah. I do absolutely love that feature now.
Those take all the guesswork out of all those features where you're just like, what does that do? I mean, you can try it, but that might not make it evident what the function actually does. This actually gives you a little preview. What I was going to say real quick is you can also save a brush to your interface. If you hold Shift and then you drag that brush and you release, you can then save it into a custom palette, and then you can have a whole custom palette of brushes. That way you don't have to dig through this menu and pull them out. They're just right there. But as
long as you know about custom palettes, they have been upgraded in 2016.
Yeah, that's another thing.
They have been tweaked and upgraded for Painter 2016.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you go to Custom Palette Organizer, there's now Save as Box or Export as PAL. PAL is the old version of saving things. It would, for instance, if I save this custom palette as a PAL, what would happen is it would save the palette and it would save the location of the brushes. But when you imported the palette on its own, it would say, sorry, dude, these brushes are missing. So you'd have to also import the brush category. Now, if you save it as a box, it's going to package the brushes with the custom palette, put them exactly where they were, keep their custom icons. And when you import this as a PAL, it will actually show up as its own category. So like earlier, how I imported those ABR brushes, they came in their own category. You would actually have a category here that said custom palette or whatever you labeled it. So that makes it really easy to share brushes.
Meaning if Aaron wants to give me that palette with about 20 different brushes in, he doesn't have to box things up separately. He doesn't have to save the brushes and then save the palette. He can just go save his box and then just hand that to me. Nice and easy.
For someone like me too, who has these workspaces that I share with people, and I update them, several times a month, just to have one file that I can share versus having to juggle 2 or 3 files and keep track of them all, that just makes it a lot easier. So it's good for people making brushes, and it's good for people who are collecting brushes as well.
Yeah, I end up with a lot of files dotted around in different folders and that.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing.
That really does work well.
If you have screen shares you want to do too, feel free to just jump in and show off some stuff. I don't mean to be hogging the screen share.
No, I think this is actually really effective with you doing it. This is a lot more effective than going back and forward.
Yeah.
This is actually quite a nice way of doing it.
Okay, well I'm going to show off those tooltips if you want to talk about those. I'll just hover over some of them. Are you able to see that for resaturation? It's basically giving you a little, no, it's not showing up. It's basically giving you a little visual that shows what that brush or what that particular feature is going to do, but then it also gives you a little text description. So if you want to know what bleed does, it controls how much the brush colors smear underlying colors. There's also, if you go to Help, Hints, there is a whole hints panel. So let's say I select a watercolor brush and I want to know what the heck does watercolor do? As soon as I select that watercolor brush, you can see here all these hints about how to use watercolor. Have you found that to be pretty helpful for some of the brushes?
We had this in 2015, and it was pretty good, but they've they've actually managed to get this now and really pad it out. There's a lot more images in this. There's a lot more text in this, and they've padded it out so much now. It's a lot more helpful. And now that they've given us the tooltips as well, and the tooltips aren't just on the odd. They're not just on the odd. I've forgotten the word completely here.
Feature, setting,
feature.
Parameter.
The tooltips aren't just on the odd feature or setting here and there. They're on everything. Literally any setting that you want to change, they're on absolutely anything. So if you're new to Painter, or you haven't used Painter in a long time, or you're just new to this version of Painter, you don't have to worry about anything. You know, if there's anything you're unsure of, just hover over it and you'll find out exactly what it does. And that is an absolutely beautiful thing. There's a lot of people who use Photoshop a lot, or don't know how to use this, or might be scared of features they haven't touched before, and this just reassures you. You know, there's a lot of settings in Painter, probably a lot more than other programs out there, and that makes this an absolutely vital, beautiful feature. And I think they've taken such care and precision in all of the detail here.
Yeah, it's a lot more intuitive, and it's made to be easier to use for everybody, but especially people who are new to Painter.
Yeah.
You know, even if you go to the welcome screen that loads when you first launch Painter, there is a Learn tab where you can get access to tutorials. I'm not even showing this in screen share. I'll tell you all about
really.
Yeah, you can see here on the Learn tab, there's tutorials that'll show you about all the new features. If you want to get brushes, you can get more brushes. Then there's Get Started. There's this New to Painter workspace. So you can just, if you've never used Painter before, you can just click on New to Painter. It's going to set everything up in a way that's really simple and really manageable, and you're not going to be as overwhelmed. If you've used Painter before and you just want to know what brushes are new, you can use the New Brushes workspace. So it's
I think both the New to Painter and the New Brushes both open up the hints panel.
Yeah.
Which is great. But yeah, and then you've got a simple one. There's the New Brushes in the welcome screen as well, which you can download a load of new brushes.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want fire brushes and hair brushes, superhero brushes, lighting brushes, all these things. I believe they're all particle brushes. So, you know, if you find that the particle brushes that come with Painter aren't fulfilling all your needs, and you need 20 different fire brushes, I mean, there's stuff that, you know, will do just about anything. So that's pretty cool.
If you love to paint wolves, then there's a load of fur brushes in there. You know. And you've got a lot of people who love to paint, you know, one particular thing. If you paint a lot of portraits, then there's a lot of hairbrushes in there. You know, I'm sure you've been through these sets just the same as I have, and every single one of these brushes is absolutely superb. You know,
I'll just do a screen share here, and I'll show visually what we're talking about.
But then again, of course, we're bound to say that, because we know everybody who's made these brushes up.
Yeah. You know, it's one thing that's worth mentioning is I don't want people to get the impression that I'm just selling Painter because I'm involved with Corel. I was into Painter years and years and years before they even knew who I was. And the reason why I love Corel Painter is because I've tried a bunch of other software painting applications, and Painter is the best. It's the one that I like to use. You know, of course, I'm gonna say good things about it. So, you know, that's why I'm into it.
That's what that's it.
If we go to Get Content, this is the brushes that Lawrence was talking about. You can see there's different packs. You know, if you want flames, you can check out different examples. If we go down here to Superhero, you can see what these brushes are going to do. What's cool about these brushes is you can actually buy them from within Painter, and they're going to install as soon as you buy them. And if they're kind of permanently installed, so if you were to let's say reset your workspace or uninstall and reinstall Painter, those brushes are still going to be there. You can of course get rid of them if you really want to delete them, but point being, they're going to stay there and you're not going to lose them like you would some of the other brushes that maybe people are offering you with workspaces and things like that. Those can get erased if you reset your workspace. So
yeah.
On the note of the workspace reset options, have you really checked those out at all?
Yeah. No, I've looked at those. I've reset my workspace a total of 2, maybe 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. It's worked perfectly every time. Yeah, it's worked perfectly every time, but it's a great feature, and I think it really will come in handy for a lot of people. But I am one of those people personally who when I need to, I'll just clear the deck and say start again, and just rearrange everything, because I'm a messy person. So I never get things perfect, so I'll just clear the deck and start again, rather than trying to keep everything the way it was.
Yeah, sometimes that's just easier.
Yeah.
So just to show what we're talking about, if something goes wrong with Painter, let's say it won't load, or if something you imported doesn't work, or if you're wanting to import your Corel Painter 2015 workspace into 2016, there's a lot of reasons why you may need to reset your workspace. To do that, you want to close Painter, and then you want to hold Shift and click on the icon for Painter. And in older versions of Painter, you would get basically a couple options. One is to restore everything for all workspaces, or to restore everything for the current workspace. So that meant that any brushes or anything you had saved was going to basically get thrown away. Now you have some options. You can keep some customizations, like all brushes or all of their libraries or custom palettes, or just keep everything. And then you can reset just that one workspace or your current workspace, or any workspace really. So what that's going to do is that's going to just reset all the behind the scenes stuff in Painter, get it working more smoothly, clear out any bugs, but it'll still keep all your brushes. This is something you can try if you're trying to import your Corel Painter 2015 workspace. If you're getting an error message upon loading it, just go ahead and close Painter, restart it, and use this feature here to reset your workspace, but make sure to keep your brushes. And that should do a pretty good job of making your 2015 workspace more compatible in 2016. If that doesn't work, you can do like Lawrence said, and you can just basically go through and just rebuild it from scratch, export all your brushes, and then re-import them, and so on, and just rebuild it. And sometimes that's what you have to do.
Yeah, well, that's what you had to do in the old days. I've tested this out a few times, and it works perfectly. It's especially nice if you've built a library of lots of different brushes, especially if you've been creating and saving variations. Imagine all those Photoshop ABR brushes that you've created and changed all the settings for. If you go ahead and bring in the ABRs again, you've lost all your settings.
Yep.
So this is going to come in really, really handy.
Yeah.
Unless you've exported all your brushes out.
Yeah.
So this is going to come in really, really handy for everyone.
Yeah.
Unless you back up a lot.
Yeah. I have versions and versions of everything. So what I've noticed is each time Painter comes out, I generally have to rebuild my workspace, because if you import an old workspace, you may be importing some of the bugs that come with it. So generally speaking, it's recommended that every time a new version of Painter comes out, you go ahead and just rebuild it from scratch.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like a pain, but I've probably done it hundreds of times, so it's not that bad, and it's good practice to know how to back up your files, because like Lawrence said, if you put a whole lot of work into your workspace and you're relying on these brushes and they just poof disappear, you're going to be hurting. So export everything, back everything up.
We did things during the beta test that made us hurt anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to rebuild my workspace plenty of times.
Yeah.
We we have a comment from Gav Elias again.
Yeah.
Speaking of the new features, there's one which seems to have been slated by many for being a novelty toy that nobody wanted and nobody will ever really use. What are your opinions on the audio expression brushes? I'm yet to delve into them myself.
Yes, we haven't spoken about this one yet. Yeah, the audio expression. Okay. Yes, my first impression of this is it's a bit of a gimmick. Yeah. I'm not musically talented myself, despite having played guitar a little bit. And yeah, I looked at it and thought, well, when am I actually ever going to use this? Really, you know. But having tested it quite a lot, it is actually a lot of fun to play with.
Yeah.
If you do, I mean, I'm very precision orientated. So for me, it throws in an element of non-control,
yeah,
which for me is kind of scary. However, there are a lot of abstract artists out there, and I can understand how this will be very good for them.
Yeah.
You know, it does give you it does give you a range of abilities to really throw something else in there.
Yeah, it's a new art form. It's something that people have been doing performance art along with music, but now you can really tie the two together. So it is probably something that's going to be more useful to some rather than others.
Yeah.
If you're a musician, you know, like I'm not going to sit there and talk into my microphone while I paint. That doesn't make any sense. But if I wanted to hook up my keyboard or something through my computer and, you know, play the keyboard with one hand and draw with the other, you know, I could do that, and that might be something fun to do for performance art, or just to have something new to try that I've never done before. You are gonna miss out on precision, because I guess that's kind of the point, you know. In abstract art and in expressionism, take Jackson Pollock for instance. He just slung paint at a canvas. There was no control there, yet he's, you know, one of the more popular abstract expressionist artists. So some people appreciate that in art and some people don't, and these brushes are really kind of a polarizing feature. You know, some people are like, I hate it, it's a gimmick, and other people are like, wow, this is really cool, this is exactly what I've been wanting. I'm more on the side of liking it. I don't think I'm going to use it all the time, but, you know, I have this series of videos that I've been making where I've kind of combined animations with music. I think that would be fun to show people what it can actually do, and have music playing that's actually influencing the painting. And I've done some videos. The problem is that they're all with music that I was listening to by artists that's copyrighted, so I can't upload any of those. But I will make
people. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I could.
Some people are friendly.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem with that is that the artist owns half of the music, and then the recording studio owns the other half. So you usually have to write both. But there's royalty-free music. But even outside of the context of making performance art and what you can and can't sell, just to sit down with these and turn on some classical music or some R&B or some folk music and just let that play out and paint, it's fun. You know, it's something you haven't tried. So whether or not you like it, I guess that's kind of up to you. But it's there and it's fun.
Well, this is it. I came at it from the angle of, you know, my art's based on precision. This is just a gimmick, pointless to me, blah, 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 blah. But if I'm not so full of myself and I don't take myself seriously, actually this can be fun. And it's not all about me. There are a lot of abstract artists out there, and a lot of them are digital nowadays. And actually, having used this quite a lot in the beta testing period, actually, this is really good. And there are a lot of settings in this. I mean, if you screen share for a moment and show just how deep the settings in this go, it's not just a set of brushes. I mean, there are quite a few of these brushes, but you can turn any brush into an audio brush.
Yeah,
and they work really, really well. A lot of the brushes, any brush that has a feature setting that you can change into direction or pressure, sensitivity, anything like that, you can also turn into an audio brush like that. There you go, with a tooltip. You can turn that into an audio expression brush. So it's not just a little gimmick. This is something that Corel have actually put a lot of thought into, and we saw this seriously develop over the term of the beta test. It expanded and developed quite a lot. I was actually amazed at how much work went into this through the beta test. And the usability of these brushes as well expanded a lot. And these work so well, actually. When you put a piece of music through an audio brush, or through any brush that you turn into an audio brush, I can't realistically, I can't call these a gimmick, because they do work so well. Even if I can't find a reason to use them, I couldn't call them a gimmick.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's artists out there, like I would imagine Jeremy Sutton and Android Jones, who do performance art. I mean, their fan base and their audience is going to eat this stuff up. So, you know, like you said, whether or not it works for you, it's something that's for other people. You know, not everything that's going to be added to Painter is going to be for you specifically.
I could definitely see Android Jones coming up with some really, really nice stuff with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeremy too.
Yeah. Let's talk about dynamic speckles. What do you think about those?
One of my favorite features as well. I think this would definitely be a big seller.
You talk about it and I'll paint with them. How about that?
Yeah, go for it. So basically, I see this. This is almost a bit like the ABRs as well in a way. This is a series of speckles that we've got. This is a whole new brush feature now. So what we've got is a series of brushes that basically a series of speckles, and you can paint with these and they create a stroke. So you can create hair, grass, all kinds of new movement, and you can decide how many lines you have, and you can get some really interesting shapes and decide how close together they are. And the palette for this is really interesting as well. If you look over here, you can decide the count and size, but it's you've also got you can decide on the edge whether it's hard or soft as well, and you've got the smoothness and of course the jitter in there and everything that you're used to. But of course you can turn this into an audio as well. But if you play with the spacing, then you can just have dots, which you can do a nice starry sky with. But one thing I found this really useful for is when you're painting skin, you can actually create a really nice porous texture for the skin. That works really well. I was doing a series of portraits recently, and I found it works really nice for a nice porous texture on the skin.
I have one that I adapted to use pressure to kind of make scales, because I find that when you're painting scales, you're inclined to not necessarily think of them three-dimensionally. They're kind of more of a pattern, and you want them to kind of wrap around to be kind of in perspective. So if you set the pressure on the brush, if you set the brush to pressure, then you can have those really light, kind of thin, smaller scales on the edge, and then as you increase pressure and move towards the center, you can make the scale of the scales bigger. So that's kind of cool.
That's interesting. I'm always, because obviously I do dragons,
Hmm.
I'm always creating dragon brushes and scale brushes and on the lookout for good
Hmm.
scale brushes, because you know, drawing scales takes up so much time, and
Yeah.
you know, there's never the perfect brush. There's just the perfect brush for those 10 scales.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
it's
know,
one thing if you're trying to imply them as a texture. It's another thing if you have to do something that's so detailed that you have to draw every single scale, and each scale has to have its own highlight and shadow. And
yeah.
I've had to do that for some things. Particular product that was going to be, it was like a kind of a fabric thing that wrapped around you, and it was Python or something. And like, I guess basically I tried a bunch of different things, and ultimately I think what I decided is that I was just going to have to just draw them, because I tried making a hexagon pattern and all these different things and nothing worked. You really had to take the time to look at snakes, different references, and figure out how
I
it
normally
works.
use a brush and then draw them and then go over it with another brush,
Hmm.
just lightly going over it with another brush.
Yeah.
I find that the kind of combinations somehow make it real.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
you know,
my cop out's usually like I'll we'll do a few scales intermittently, and then everything else will be kind of a texture, because you don't. It's too easy to over render things. Sometimes in a photograph you don't always see the detail on every single scale,
no,
even though
it's focal points.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's an aesthetic choice too. Maybe you want to draw the attention to a certain area or not.
Yeah.
What else? What else do we have that's new?
We've covered the welcome screen.
Yeah, there
Obviously,
is.
the big features like enhanced blending, uh, audio input, dynamic speckles, rotating the papers,
There's
the ABRs.
there's that
Um,
mixing the special media, like how you can connect particles to watercolor.
yes,
Should we show that
this
off real
is
quick?
an
This
absolutely
is
great one, isn't it?
yeah,
Because it was just one of those things that kind of bothered us before, but you know, I think it's just one of those fixes that I really love, you know, and now we
yeah.
can kind of mix things, mix brushes, and
Um,
that's what painter's always been about, really, is mixing the mediums.
mhm.
And I think
This
that's what Painter 2016 I think has really managed to do well, is
mhm.
now managed to let us mix the brushes together.
Yeah.
I think that really
Um,
works now.
this speckled tiger lily in real watercolor is a good example. I wonder if Skip made this one. This seems like a Skip brush. You can see the little particles dance around and do their thing. And if I let go, is this going to bleed and trickle into the paper or diffuse as a watercolor brush would? So if we look under the brush control panels general to look at all the possible settings, you can see that this brush has a dab type. There's a bunch of new dab types here that connect liquid ink, watercolor, and dynamic speckles to the particle brush technology. So right now I'm using one of these watercolor ones. Which one is it? I'm using dynamic speckle flow particles for this particular brush. But you can connect liquid ink, watercolor. I believe you can also connect impasto to a lot of brushes that couldn't normally use impasto before.
Yeah.
So for instance, if I had like a sponge brush that didn't normally use impasto, I could add impasto to that. So things are kind of linked up a little more, and you get a lot more control over your brushes. There's also, if we look, let's just change this to a regular brush. There's also some new subcategories. Just find a brush that uses it here. Nope. Grainy alpha blend in the subcategory is also new, and that's kind of a different way of blending. It blends to alpha, so if you find that there's any brushes that still have a little bit of white fringe or they're not blending exactly as they should, you can use this new grainy alpha blend. And then a lot of the brushes, a lot of the older brushes that you would expect to see like in the blenders have been updated. If it says 2 next to it, that basically means that we've gone through and updated most of the blenders to enhanced layer blending, or changed the subcategory to greeny alpha blend, or added speckles to brushes that normally would use bristles, and basically everything's just upgraded to use the new technologies. You'll also notice that in the 2016 brush library, some things have been combined, like acrylics and gouache are together. There's fewer categories now, and there's fewer variants, so that it's easier to find what you're looking for.
I will just point out, on the brushes with number 2 at the end,
yeah,
like you've got wet grainy blender 2 there. Sorry, wet detail brush 2 there. If you want the original, you'll find that in the Painter 2015 brushes.
Yeah. If we switch to that library, yeah, everything's still there. You just switch to the 2015 library, and there's all the categories and tons of brushes. And you get to that through this little top right sub dialog menu, and you go to brush library. You can choose from any of these libraries.
Oh, and I will point out as well that you can drag brushes from either library now into your custom palettes.
Oh, so you can mix 2015 and 2016?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Into your custom palettes, and there's not a problem with that.
That's good. What I've done with the brushes is I package all mine together into my own custom category. And then that way I don't really have to switch libraries. I just exported out all the brushes I wanted, tweaked them to how I wanted them to be, and then make them that category. And that way, if I ever want to move that category between versions of Painter, it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
Takes a little bit of work, you know, like this stuff you see here, these are all, or actually you can't see it because I'm not screen sharing again.
In 2015, if you had different brushes from different libraries, in the same custom palette, you couldn't use them without going and swapping the library, manually swapping your library.
Yeah, that was kind of a pain.
But now you can. It automatically swaps your library for you.
Yeah,
so
it's very handy dandy.
It's actually easier, rather than going through the menu to swap your library. It's actually easier to just go and pick the, you know, if you know that one's in the 2015 library, it's actually easier to go and click on the brush from that in your custom brush menu.
I guess that's kind of the overall message for anybody who wants to upgrade is, you know, Painter 2016 is definitely easier, more intuitive.
Yeah.
It's 3 times faster is what they say. You know, I have a pretty fast computer, so it's going to run Painter pretty quickly no matter what. I've heard some people say that the riff format especially is really fast now. Do you have any input on speed?
Things.
Yeah.
Tree transforms and just little things like that. But overall, it's just the little improvements here and there. With, like I said, just little things like that.
Well, I think we covered all of the major talking points. I guess we can open up the audience questions again and see if anybody wants to ask us anything else about Painter 2016, or if you just have a question about digital painting, or if you want to know more about the cool shirts that Lawrence and I are wearing. This is all I'm wearing now, pretty much. It's just custom shirts that I made. So it makes it easier to decide what to wear in the morning when I get up. It's like, which one of my shirts am I going to wear? And if I get sick of them, then I just have to design more.
I'm just wearing my YouTube t-shirt.
Yeah. I wanted to make one with like a QR code on the back. That way when I'm doing the paintings outside, you know, if people are like staring at me from behind while I'm painting, they can take a picture of my back and then, or not take a picture, but scan my back and then go to my website. And
shave it into your head.
Yeah.
Tattoo on the neck.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Tattoos seem kind of, I don't know if I like anything I've ever designed or drawn for long enough to commit to it being a tattoo, and I don't know if I'd want somebody else to draw their artwork on me. How do you feel about
That's the
tattoos?
reason I don't have any tattoos.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've no. I don't know about liking something enough to get it permanently inked onto me.
And if it gets messed up, that's on you permanently.
I just, I end up looking at things a year later and going, that could be better. That could be better. I'm too picky. So,
or it could become an obsession, and you could, be like the lizard man and have your whole body covered in tattoos.
I've designed tattoos for other people.
Yeah.
I've done that a few times, but plus I don't think my wife would like it. So.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't know if we're going to get any more questions here. Otherwise, we're just going to have to just keep talking about random stuff.
One thing I did want to mention is the fact that they've streamlined the brush library.
Yeah, I think
they have mixed a few of the categories together, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I'll do a screen share here. We'll check that out.
Yeah.
I think, yep, acrylics and gouache, chalk, pastel, and crayons are grouped together now.
Yeah.
Particle knives and sponges. It's really just, when you're going through here, especially if you're a new user, it's kind of intimidating to see all these brushes. This kind of narrows it down to, what are really the essential brushes, because some of these are, not necessarily in this library, but in the 2015 library, there are some brushes that are so similar that you don't necessarily need all those. And for someone who's doing performance art or somebody who just wants to work quickly and efficiently, you don't want to be scrolling through this list forever to find your brushes. So condensing this down and making it leaner and meaner makes it easier to find brushes, but it also improves the loading speed of the library when you load it. There's less brushes to load.
I like the fact that they didn't try and bring everything through from the 2015 library.
Yeah.
Because if they'd have done that, it would have just been brush overload.
That's probably a lot of the reason, because I think, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think Painter 2015 had like 800 brushes, and I think it's down to like 300 or 500 or something. So it's a pretty good reduction in brushes. But that doesn't, to most people who are kind of been using Painter for a while, it's not going to matter so much, because we've probably got all of our brushes saved. Like, even though there's new brushes, I'm still probably going to use a lot of the older ones here, but there are some that are pretty cool. Let's do a screen share real quick and show you a couple. This grainy palette knife, I found that the old palette knives didn't really work very well for like mountains and things, because they didn't use any of the grain. They didn't use it as well. So this is a nice grainy palette knife if you wanted to do some Bob Ross style mountains. The scaly brush that I was telling you about earlier.
Just put a little man right in there.
So you can vary the pressure, and then you can get that nice kind of contour of the scales.
Yeah, it does work well. It's nice.
Speckle sponge impasto. This is like a sponge with impasto.
See, if those were hexagons,
probably shouldn't use that brush.
Perfect.
That actually made my connection lag. Sorry about that. I'm gonna be a little laggy until this brush finishes doing its thing. Okay.
No, don't worry about it.
That was scary. I thought it was gonna crash. Really a big brush like that on a big canvas, because that's what's gonna happen. Let's try it with a smaller brush.
Yeah.
That's just what happens. It's a sponge brush and it's a speckle brush, so I'm combining speckle with the sponge.
There's a lot of settings to some of these brushes, and sometimes your processor just has to work these things out. Some of these brushes can be quite scary.
Sorry, you were cutting out there. What did you say?
I was just saying, some of these brushes have so many settings behind them that the processor takes a certain amount of time to follow up on it. You there?
Sorry, it's being spotty again.
Tell me when you caught up. You there?
And with usage real quick here and see if that helps. Okay. Can you hear me all right now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. What were you saying about the settings?
Yeah, Peggy, but you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just saying that some of these brushes have so many settings that once you start to power them up, that your processor just starts churning away.
Yeah.
So yeah, the lag on them.
Yeah.
Once you start to power the size of that brush up, your processor just eats into it.
That's one thing I've heard people complain about in Painter is some of the brushes are slow. You have to figure, like, if I'm using a canvas now that's 300 dpi, so it's an 8x10 canvas. That's quite a bit of pixels, and that brush is spitting out millions and millions and millions of little speckles here and there. And on top of that, it's calculating impasto and all these other things. I mean, that's a lot going on. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like you're just making a stroke, but that takes a lot of work.
But that's it. It's the amount of settings behind this brush. This isn't an ABR file like in Photoshop. This isn't a stamp with, 10 settings or 15 settings. This is a painter brush with what could be 60 settings, possibly more. And once you power it up to a certain size, your processor's okay. It might go slightly nuts, for a minute, and scare you into thinking it's going to crash.
Yeah, it usually doesn't crash. It usually just kind of locks up, and then I can't do anything, and you just kind of wait it out.
Have a sip of your coffee and just relax.
Yeah, but there's some brushes that are okay to use big, like the air brushes. I can make pretty big air brushes, and they don't really lag. The real watercolors, those are really laggy if you use too big of a canvas and too big of a brush. You're gonna have to be patient with those, because those are doing tons of stuff. Like the water is actually trickling and running, and it's pretty intense. So if you've ever done video rendering or 3D rendering, you know that stuff like that doesn't seem like much. Just for when Lawrence and I make our videos, there's a lot of work that goes into editing the video, but then when you want to render it or turn it from the incomplete project to the complete video that people watch, your computer has to spend time doing that. It's like baking cookies or something. You got to wait 30 minutes if you want that video to be done.
You use Camtasia, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, then you're used to that crashing every 5 minutes as well.
Yeah, I call it Crashtasia. And I have a video I was going to show. I don't know if you can see it here. Let's see if you can see this. The S and the A key on my keyboard are the two that the paint's chipped off of the most. That's because I'm pressing save after literally every single thing I do in Camtasia. Because if I don't, then it's pretty bad. It crashes all the time, and I'll lose 10, 15 minutes multiple times per day. That stuff adds up.
Yeah.
Lately, since I upgraded to Windows 10, I can't render in Camtasia at all. I have to use my Cintiq Companion, which has Windows 8, to do all my rendering. So I have to move everything back on a flash drive.
See, it's funny because I use Camtasia for the Mac, which, as I understand it, is a completely different program built from scratch. It's not built as the same program and then exported differently. This is a completely different program built, side by side. It's actually has different features.
Yeah.
It can't do as much as the Windows version, and yet it still crashes every 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I think
these people are just doing something fundamentally wrong on every level.
I know. It's like a love-hate relationship. It's like there's no other alternative that you can pick that's going to do a better job of it, because you could use Premiere Pro, but even if you could do all your editing in Premiere Pro to make all the custom callouts and things, that'd be a huge pain. It takes like a couple of seconds to do it in Camtasia.
I wouldn't mind if they just apologized by just giving me a free Windows copy.
Yeah. I'm going through their tech support now, and they're like, well, you know, maybe it's your video card drivers, or maybe it's this audio thing that's plugged in, and it's like, I know what it is. It's Windows 10 because I upgraded my companion to Windows 10, tried rendering, it wouldn't render in Windows 10 on my tablet, so then I uninstalled 10 and went back to 8, and then it rendered fine. So it's purely something to do with 10, but I've talked to other artists who make tutorials that are using Windows 10, and they say that it renders fine for them. So it's just my
don't mention Windows 10 to skip.
Oh yeah, Skip had a huge problem. If you're wondering about upgrading to 10, I think it's kind of mixed reviews. Skip Allen had some problems with his computer. I think it crashed a bunch of times while it was trying to install and just wrecked his computer. So even despite going through a whole bunch of hours and hours with tech support and everything, they still, I don't know if they got it fixed, but he had a horrendous experience. Mine, everything works fine except for rendering. You know, Corel Painter works fine, Photoshop, all of my hardware, my tablet and all that stuff, it's all fine, just I can't render. And for me, I make videos all the time, you know, it's kind of inconvenient. I'm glad I found a workaround. But this is also during the process of making my Corel Painter Essentials course, which is 4.5 hours worth of video, and even more than that if you consider all the stuff I cut out. So, I mean, to have to render that stuff out by copying it to a flash drive, putting it on my tablet, and then rendering it on the tablet, putting it on a flash drive again, and then putting it on my computer, that was just a lot of extra work that didn't need to happen. But
yeah,
that's how dedicated I am. So I got it done.
My Surface Pro 3, it failed to download twice. And when I finally did get Windows 10 downloaded, it installed absolutely fine, but it took me about a day and a half to actually get it downloaded and installed. I didn't even spot how to download it at first because, okay, the little Windows thing appeared in the corner, but it didn't pop up and say, you know, download Windows 10.
Yeah.
Even though I was, you know, in the Windows Insider program. But it works absolutely fine. Painter works beautifully on it. Photoshop works beautifully on it. I haven't had a single problem with it. You know, every program I've got for it works beautifully on it. But
did you do an upgrade or a fresh install?
Upgrade.
Okay, that's what I did too. I got sick of waiting for that little automatic upgrade to happen, so I just went on Microsoft and downloaded some file. I thought it was going to have to do a bunch of fancy stuff with a flash drive, but I think what happened is it just downloaded from the website and installed, and it was quick and easy. So that's what I did with it. On my tablet, I believe that by the time I got to upgrading on the tablet, which I waited to do until after I completed my course, I believe I did the upgrade through Windows on that one, and it upgraded fine. And then reverting back to Windows 8 was like 30 seconds to a minute or something of it's doing its thing, and then it restarted and it was back to 8 perfectly fine. So
I assumed that would have been a nightmare.
No, it was like, you know, okay, you don't like Windows, fine. Here's 8 back and everything is working as it was, so that's good.
No, I just assumed that would have been a nightmare to do.
Yeah, because the tablet doesn't have a CD drive, and well, I don't like. It's like I'm so out of date now with installing things. I'm used to installing Windows from a CD, but I guess now they do them from direct download, or you have to make a flash drive thing. And I just hope
a lot of things these days don't. You know, when you buy a piece of hardware, it doesn't even come with a CD. I think a couple of things I bought recently just, you know, had a scrap of paper in there saying, go to this website and download drivers.
Yeah, CD drives, disk drives in general are pretty obsolete for computers.
Yeah, my Mac doesn't even have a CD-ROM. I had to buy a Logitech external CD reader.
Yeah, most things, you know, like if it came out on a CD, it's probably so old that most things will have a newer driver available on the website. So if you buy a Wacom tablet, like a lot of the questions I get repeatedly are, I don't have a CD drive, can I still install this tablet? Yes, you go to the website, download the driver, and install it that way. You don't need the disk at all.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a question from Niall Drew. Hey guys, great video, thanks. I've fallen in love with Corel Painter X3 over the last few years. I wonder, is it possible to upgrade from X3 to Painter 2015, or would I have to buy the whole thing as it's now 2 versions from what I have? Off the top of my head, I don't know for sure the details about upgrading specifically from X3 to 2015. My guess would be you can probably only upgrade to 2016 as an upgrade now, because that would just make more sense. You'd probably want to do that anyways. If you're going to bother upgrading, you might as well get the newest version.
Upgrade to the latest version.
I mean, you can certainly buy the full version of any of the older versions of Painter, but those are typically not always the best price. What's that?
How many versions ago was X3?
It was before 2015.
Yes, it's only... Yeah, surely.
I don't know, you would want to go to their website and check, because these upgrade offers also depend on which country you live in. I know that you can upgrade from 2015 to 2016 and you'll get a deal. I believe it's like $99 or something. But I believe that's for US, maybe some other countries, and I think you have to do it before like September or something. You just want to go to Corel's website and check that out. It's painterartist.com.
You are in Northern Ireland, so yeah.
Good question. I think,
sure.
yeah, I think if there's a deal to upgrade from X3 to 2016, I would look at that, because that might be the same price, if not cheaper, you know. So if that's a possibility, that's what I would do.
Yeah, we're still in the early days of, you know. Sure, there must be a deal on at the moment. So
yeah, I would just check out their website and see. So that's one that we're not we're not necessarily experts on the pricing, because it varies depending on a lot of things. Yeah. So it's always better just to check on the website rather than.
Chris, if you're still watching, then throw in a comment and let us know.
Well, let's see. We got another comment here about the lag when I was painting. As the lag just happened, have you noticed the slower performance in 2016 at high resolution? I have a Core i7 with 32 gigabytes of RAM, and I paint 48 by 36 inches at 300 DPI, so I can make prints, but performance seems slower on 2016 at that size, when 2015 had no problem. I don't know if I've really worked on anything that big in a while, so maybe you'd have a better answer there. I mean, at everything I've done that's like 8 by 10, 11 by 14. Huh?
That is a big size, to be fair. But, yeah. But it shouldn't be slower.
It shouldn't be. It might make a difference whether or not you're using RIF or PSD.
Yeah.
You might be using some of the newer brushes like we talked about earlier. If they're using particle and watercolor and something else, they might be working a little slower. But most of what I do is most of what I've done with 2015 has been in the range of like 8 by 10 and 11 by 14. So I haven't done anything too big, but I haven't noticed anything slower than 2015. The only time that anything ever slows down is if I accidentally use a brush that's way bigger than I should. But other than that, speed's been fine.
Sorry, let me just grab a drink here. Yeah. The only thing I'll say, Gav, is that did you change anything in your preferences in 2015? Because obviously, I imagine when you installed 2016, you won't have changed anything in your preferences. So just make sure you go to your preferences in 2016 and you know, you can up the amount of cores that your processor's using, and just make sure your performance is up to, you know, the best it can be there.
Yeah.
Just tweak it and fine tune that there.
Yeah, because that's basically the same processor I have. I have 24 gigabytes of RAM. The i7 can use 4 cores and then 4 virtual cores. I don't know if Painter uses the virtual cores. I would try it with and without, but I would also save at least a core for background tasks. So I have mine set to 3 logical cores, but you could try setting it to 7 and see if that makes a difference.
I don't even use that many because I sometimes have Photoshop open or have it doing other tasks, and I don't want to panic my computer.
I've multitasked with Photoshop and all that with 3 cores, and it doesn't seem to do anything detrimental.
No, that's fair enough.
Here's a comment from the Corel site. To purchase the upgrade version of this product, you must own a previous licensed version of Painter 7 or up. Your original serial number will be required. Please note that, oops, it moved here. Where did that go?
I was going to say, I can't even see that.
Yeah, another comment came in and then it moved. Where'd it go?
I did see something kind of jump
here
about.
Here we go. Please note that the upgrade eligibility excludes trial academic, OEM, or not for res. So I guess you can upgrade from 7 or later.
Yeah.
So I don't know what kind of deal you'll get, but you'll want to, obviously the information's on the website there.
Yeah. But there you go, you can upgrade easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See if there was another comment there.
This
comments panel is weird. They're just all shuffled. They don't come in like the most recent on top. Because I've had to scroll through the list. They're just coming in wherever. Like one's here and one's here and one's here.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if we didn't.
Priscilla says, I missed the first few minutes. Could you explain or discuss the enhanced blending?
Yeah, we got that one earlier.
Yeah.
And we answered the Windows 10 inadvertently, so.
Yeah. It works great with Windows 10.
Thanks by the way for looking up that information on Corel's website. That was helpful.
Yes, that was really great. Cheers for that. One thing I was going to say is, shall we have a look at Particle Shop?
Yeah. Do you have it installed?
I do.
Okay, let's do that. While you're loading that up, I'll just explain what Particle Shop is. Particle Shop is a plugin that you can get for Photoshop that lets you use many of the particle brushes from Corel Painter inside of Photoshop. So you load the plugin and then you can paint, let's say, fire or fur or lighting effects and different things. This is more geared towards photo editing. So most of the brushes and effects are going to kind of be stuff that you would expect to see in photography. I believe it's geared more towards photographers and photo editors. I'm sure you could paint with the brushes. There's, as you'll see in a minute, a pretty cool blender brush. And so it's kind of interesting.
I'm just starting to load this now.
Yeah, I have it. I haven't installed it yet to try it, but I am gonna make a video about that soon. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any. We're still going to be here for a while chit-chatting, so if there's anything you want to know, feel free to ask. If you want to know where to get some official Lawrence Mann shirts or Aaron Rutten shirts, just let us know and we'll we'll send you the link.
You can't buy this, it's one of a kind. Right, so here you go. Can you see my screen?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this is Particle Shop. It starts off a lot like Painter, It basically is a plugin for Photoshop, and it starts off a lot like Painter. So here you can see the particle shop, as it were. So you can see all the brushes that are available to buy, and these are the same brushes that you can buy in Painter. So you can see the storm spaced out. You see the totally brilliant light it up brushes here. Dust and debris, flame, superhero brushes. You can have a quick flick through some of the brushes. There we go.
Yeah, those are cool. Covers all your needs too, because I've done a lot of photo editing myself, and if you want something like a light burst or flames, things like that, you would normally have to either be really good at drawing that stuff in Photoshop, or you'd have to have a photo reference that you then composite into it using blend modes. And this way, if you want fire, you just paint the fire wherever you want it.
Exactly.
You're not going to have all of the control that you would have in Corel Painter as far as being able to tweak the brushes and use other brushes with them. So there are some limitations there, but again, it's not really meant to be used for painting. Like, it's not meant to take all the features of Corel Painter or all the particle brush features and move them into Photoshop. It's just kind of the essential features that photo editors would want to use.
Yeah, it's a plugin. It's a Photoshop plugin.
Yeah. Do you want to do a little painting demo there on your superhero?
Yep. So you can buy these sets here, and obviously just click buy now. So I'll open this up, and obviously I've got all of these installed already. So here we've got an image of our little superhero here. I'll just tell you what, I'll just close that down. At the moment, I'm using a Wacom 27QHD touch, so I can do that and just turn my touch screen on and off, and turn my little keyboard on and off. But I can kind of grab a brush here, and I can just. The good thing is this is kind of like a little cut down version of Painter. I have the same controls, so my brush size works exactly the same as Painter, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the same kind of tool size options as Photoshop. So if you're used to Painter and you come across to Photoshop, you've got these.
And is that keyboard shortcut? Is that what you're using to resize your brush? Control and Alt or Command Option?
I'm actually using the remote from my Wacom 27QHD here.
Is that set to a modifier, or is it just set to resize the brush?
It's set to. I'm using the wheel on the remote.
So I'm just wondering if the brush resize shortcut from Painter works inside of there.
I've got that set to a button as well, separately on a button, and it works. I've got that as a keyboard, as a modifier.
Cool.
And that works perfectly. So I just hold down the button if I want. I've got it on the wheel and separately as a button, so I can just hold that down and just move my mouse like that. There you go. Or I can just use my wheel. It works perfectly either way.
Neat.
So I've got different brushes here, and I can use kind of Portal, for example, and create kind of a lightning strike. Let me just undo that and pick a color here. So if I go for this nice, bright, vibrant, and just like in Painter, I can turn glow on and off. Obviously, superpowers always look better, nice and bright. There we go. But they also look better with I suppose, There we go.
And these will work with the mouse and with the tablet. You're going to get more control if you have a tablet, but you could still use them with the mouse. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of these brushes are probably going to use glow, I would imagine. Like you said, the superhero brushes especially. So you're going to want to make sure that you turn glow on for those. Otherwise, it's not going to look quite right.
Yeah, exactly. This I could do with a bigger. I could do with just making my. Oops.
And you got the little color wheel too. That color wheel is like the temporal color wheel in Painter. If you select a color and then you paint, it disappears. There's also a little pin button if you want it to be showing all the time rather than disappearing.
There you go.
You can pin it down. And then there's the blender also. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a blender and you don't have a lot of control over it like you would in Painter. But
no, it's just like that.
From somebody else said this, it's better than the blenders in Photoshop. I can't really confirm that because I don't really use Photoshop for blending. What do you think?
It's a very nice blender. It's a really, really good standard blender, actually. And it's actually better than Photoshop standard blender.
Yeah.
I will say that.
That's cool.
But on the other hand, I will also say, you know, I wouldn't just outright say it's better. I'd say it's different.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people who has to say one's better than the other. It's different.
Yeah.
You know, why does one thing have to be better than the other?
I guess it's all subjective. It depends on what you do with it, you know. Might be better for some and not for others.
So you can see there was a little bit of lag on that one, but
yeah, it's a bigger brush, but it's doing a lot and it's doing it through a plugin too, so something to keep in mind.
One of my favorite ones on this one, actually, let me just find it. There we go. This is probably my favorite one from this set. Oops. I was accidentally holding down another button there. This one, because it's so light, you probably can't see this, actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's making little
tiny little dots.
Fairy dust or something.
Yeah. It's nice when you work it in with something else.
Yeah. What about the hair brushes? How do those work?
The hair brushes are absolutely great. It was just, this one's my favorite. I actually used this recently in an illustration.
Let's make this kid into a hippie.
Yeah.
And so right now you're working on a single layer image. You can also work on, you can add this stuff to a separate layer. One of the downsides to that though is that you won't be able to see the background.
No, I'll just be working on a transparent layer if I do.
Yeah.
That is the only downside.
Yeah. But you could, for a lot of things, you could paint in your fire and then exit out of the plugin and then just move the fire to where you want it to be. Or you can just paint on a single layer like this. Yeah, those curly haired ones are really cool. I had fun just going into Poser and then just making bald models and then painting hair on them just to practice how to use those brushes.
That's just me.
Yeah. Looks like Macho Man Randy Savage now.
That's kind of what I was going for.
This is the second Google Plus Hangout where we've talked about Macho Man Randy Savage.
Is it?
Yeah. There's one we did a while back with Mike and Torin. We were showing off some of our old animations that we'd made in Flash. So there you go. If you've ever wanted to make your own Macho Man Randy Savage images in Photoshop using the particle brushes from Painter,
There you go.
you can get Particle Shop. It's the way to go. So I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. I'm not sure if you have anything else that you want to talk about.
After that, I have nothing.
All right. Well, maybe we can do some shameless.
That is, how much is that in US dollars for Particle Shop?
Per brush, I don't know off the top of my head. I know that in Painter, when you buy the brushes, it's the brush packs. I believe they were like $30 per pack.
Yeah,
something like that.
That's what I always remember. It was like $29.
Yeah, the conversion rate's a little bit different for UK, so I think they might be slightly more. I'm not sure.
No, I was thinking it was about 29.
Yeah, I think they're about 29 per pack.
But
and then
I don't think it came up in British currency. I think it just came up in dollars.
And then each pack has what, like 15 or 16 brushes per pack.
16 brushes per pack.
So to be, each brush will be very different
from there. So
yeah, each brush you can change the color. Some of them will use texture and other Painter features. So it really kind of depends on the brush. How about we do a little shameless self-promotion if there's anything you want to show off that you're working on or you want to promote?
I've just finished a load of NDA stuff, so I can't show it.
Well, how about your website or some of your, just for people who are maybe watching that don't know all about Lawrence Mann, where can they see your work? And
everybody can see my, I'll tell you what, I'll show
it's got the shirt there.
There you go.
Yeah, so if you go to youtube.com/Lawrence Can Draw, or you could just search for Lawrence Can Draw. Yeah, he's got all kinds of cool Corel Painter tutorials and demonstrations.
Exactly. My website is Lawrence Mann. It's hard to point stuff on videos.
Yeah, it's backwards.
I'm pointing everywhere, but there you go.
It's somewhere.
It's white, and I can't. You know where it is.
Yeah.
lawrencemann.co.uk to see my portfolio. There's also my YouTube channel, my Facebook, which is lawrence.can.draw. And I'm also on Twitter at Lawrence Can Draw. If you just Google Lawrence Can Draw, I'm virtually on every media platform. He's exactly everywhere. The same as Aaron.
Yeah, we've got it thoroughly saturated with our work.
We're everywhere.
I'll just do a quick screen share because I talk all the time about my YouTube channel, and so I think everybody knows all about that. So I want to talk about what I've been working on lately, which is my Corel Painter 2016 Essentials course. It's 4.5 hours of video content. You can download the videos to your computer, and then you can watch them anytime that you want. You can complete the course at your own pace. So I'm on my website, aaronrutten.com. There's a little banner up at the top you can click on, or you can go to Education Online Courses. And what this course does is it gives you an overview of the essentials. So what do I use on an everyday basis for my paintings? What do you really need to know versus, things that you probably aren't ever going to use? So there's some things that I kind of speed over, like I don't really go too into detail about cloning and watercolor because I don't use those things a whole lot. I explain how they work and show you how to use them, but I don't go in depth about that. But I do go in depth into a bunch of other things. You can, of course, just look at the scope of this list that shows everything that I list. If you want to learn about the canvas functions or what size canvas to use or what the different brush categories do or how to make your own brushes, and it goes on forever. You can check that out. It's available for purchase on gumroad.com. If you don't know what Gumroad is, it's a website that just lets artists and other creative people sell things like video tutorials and other kinds of products, and they take care of all the payment information for that. If you want a coupon to save on this course, you can always go over to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Aaron Aaron Rutten Art, I have a coupon to save a little bit off of this course price. Or if you join me on Patreon, you will get an even deeper discount for being a patron. You can save quite a bit on this course. You'll also be helping to support my channel on YouTube. So that's patreon.com/Aaron Rutten. So that is all about me there.
And you can see new microphone right there that you just saw on Patreon.
Yep, made possible by donations from my patrons who helped me improve the quality of my videos. You know, when I first started out, I had not a very good camera and not a very good microphone and no lights or anything, and those donations really add up. I mean, it allows me to improve the quality of my channel. I'd like to get to a point where I have a budget and I can, you know, travel to the Grand Canyon and do a painting, or, you know, go to Egypt and paint the pyramids and things like that. And it's really crowdfunding that makes that possible. So definitely check that out.
I keep thinking about looking into it myself, but I mean, I don't have the following that you have on YouTube, so I don't think it's something that I could do just yet. But
yeah, I mean, I would say set it up, because I set mine up a few months before people actually started becoming patrons. So I would look at it this way: like, you have a few followers, but the people who start to follow you and become your fans early on are probably your hardcore fans. So even if that's a small number, like 100 people, maybe, you know, 50% of those people would donate $1. I mean, it's something, and it adds up, and I don't think it's too early to start, really. So I would check it out. But you have to have a pretty good idea of the future, you know, like, what are your goals? You know, when you reach certain amounts of money, what are you going to do with that and things? And I've kind of really taken a lot of time to think that through. You know, in the next 10 years, what do I want to be doing, and how can people help me do that? So,
well, I've just upgraded my camera equipment anyway to something semi-decent. I would like a decent secondary camera, you know, because it's really good to film yourself from 2 angles.
Yeah, definitely makes editing easier too. And, you know, from a viewer's point of view, you're probably like, well, you know, YouTube's free. Why should we give these guys money? If you think about it, even if you just donate $1 a month, if 1,000 other people donate $1 a month, then that channel you're watching has X amount of money to invest into making the show better. So really what you're doing is you're paying $1 to get something that's, you know, $1,000 better in production quality. It's, you know, it's definitely worth the investment. And people like Lawrence and I spend a lot of time making these videos. It takes a lot of work to do. As I mentioned, with the rendering and the editing and everything, just for that Corel Painter course, even though it's only 4.5 hours of content, I probably put in 40 hours of work to complete that, you know. It's a lot of work.
To make something look like you took 5 minutes to make it, that, oh, hi, video.
Yeah. There's a lot of you'd probably get a kick out of seeing my blooper reels. You know, it takes me 7 or 8 takes just to get something done, and then, you know, it's all this cussing and swearing that goes on that gets cut out when when I get interrupted, or I can't say what I want to say the way I want to say it. So
yes, yeah, exactly. No, I'm the same. But, you know, and I've got this room here that's not gigantic, and I've just, you know, you can't see it here, but I've just, you know, put loads of new stuff on the wall and tidied it all up, and you know, made my little corner.
I like your background, because it looks like a studio, you know. Like, I think my space is set up to where it doesn't work so well for me. Like, I don't know, my house it's not as nicely decorated, and I'm in my living room rather than in an office space. So I just put up this little screen behind me. You can see here, it's just a little green screen thing or a black screen that I move behind my chair whenever I'm working. And then I have my desk here with my tablet and my TV and all that little behind the scenes footage for you. Yeah, so that's
I really want to paint all the walls white next. They need to paint they need a repaint anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, yellow's no good. Some like an aquamarine to match your painting there.
But yeah, I mean, that's the only thing wrong now, because I've got work up everywhere, which is nice, and I've got artwork by artists that I really like everywhere, as well as my own artwork. And
it's the Corel Painter Essentials cover.
Yeah, and some other stuff that I've done, and all my books and everything I love. So you know, I'm happy with my studio. But
yeah, that might be kind of a fun hangout to do sometime. I mean, I know we showed a little bit, but we could talk about our workspaces. I know that's important to a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's just I spend all day every day in this room, so it needs to be, you know.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we are getting to about the 2-hour mark. I appreciate everybody watching our hangout and asking questions and even providing some answers that we couldn't answer. That was really helpful. Lawrence, I appreciate you joining me as always, and hopefully we can set up another hangout pretty soon. Get some other people to join us as well. If you follow either of us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, that's probably the best way to get an update for when we're going to do the next hangout. We'll try to announce it as early as we can, but sometimes we kind of, you know, we're very busy people, so it's hard to plan things out until the last minute. So we do appreciate you joining us, though. Anything else you want to say, Lawrence?
We'll put links to our Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube pages in the Google Hangout page here, and yeah, please do follow us. And we're going to put up clips and the entire Google Hangout video on both of our YouTube pages anyway, so you can watch this back and watch just the little clips as well over the coming days. Yeah, it'd be great if you followed us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And we'll see you next time, basically.
Yep.
We look forward to chatting to you. Any questions that you do have going forward about Painter 2016, or in fact anything else digital painting wise, feel free to give us a shout about. And in fact, the next hangout, let us know what you want to hear about.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be great.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, Aaron.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next time.